Story 1. One owns a tattoo shop and is doing well. Another individual, who used to be a heavy cannabis user, became excellent at selling cars and is now quite wealthy. Story 2. He has an Emmy. He was made fun of by everyone, including me, for being incredibly passionate about photography and film and for having the courage to continue sharing his work. He is the most successful person from my class and gets to do what he loves every day. I am very happy for him. The Emmy was awarded for his work on a news production. He is not famous. Story 3. It is somewhat disheartening that I can simply reference their Wikipedia pages. Michael Fay. In 1994, a court in Singapore sentenced an American teenager, Michael Fay, to 6 lashes with a cane for violating the Vandalism Act. This created a temporary strain in relations between Singapore and the United States. Several months after returning to the United States, Fay suffered burns to his hands and face in a butane incident. He was subsequently admitted to a rehabilitation program for butane abuse. He claimed that inhaling butane helped him forget what occurred in Singapore. In 1996, he was cited in Florida for a number of offenses, including careless driving, reckless driving, failing to report a crash, and having an open bottle of alcohol in a car. Later, in 1998, while still in Florida, Fay was arrested for possession of marijuana and drug paraphernalia. He confessed to the charges but was acquitted due to technical errors in his arrest. Jeremy Strohmeyer. Jeremy Strohmeyer, born October 11, 1978, is an American convicted murderer serving 4 consecutive life terms for the sexual assault and murder of 7-year-old Sherrice Iverson at Prima Donna Resort and Casino in Primm, Nevada, on May 25, 1997. The case drew national attention by highlighting child safety in casinos and revealing that Strohmeyer's friend, David Cash Jr., witnessed the crime in progress but did not intervene. A lot of comments revolve around David Cash Jr. He attended my college, unlike the other 2, though I never met him. A housemate and friend lived on the same floor as him in the dorms. He briefly had a black girlfriend, which was quite unusual. My friend described him as a laid-back guy, although he was rightfully shunned from fraternity parties. An interesting piece of trivia that people tend to overlook is that he inspired the Seinfeld series finale, where the characters are arrested and put on trial for violating the Good Samaritan law, a law that gained attention because of David Cash Jr. A few more details about Michael Fay for those interested. The last time I saw him was at a bar after his arrest but before his conviction. He mentioned that the incident would blow over. He was arrested in the principal's office, which turned into an international incident. He was not the only one. Another student from Hong Kong was arrested and received more lashes. The Singapore government praised the student for being humble and accepting his punishment. Several other students were arrested, but only the 2 over 18 were caned. Unbeknownst to him, he vandalized a judge's prominent car, which is widely believed to have contributed to the severity of his punishment. Teachers at the American school would smuggle in VHS tapes of shows like Saturday Night Live and show them in class. One classmate among those caught simply stopped attending school one day. I later read in the news that he fled the country and returned to Australia. He must ensure that any flight he takes does not allow for an emergency landing in Singapore, as he is considered an international fugitive. The famous Simpsons episode about booting in Australia was a clear parody of Singapore. The country did not initially recognize this and allowed it to air on their only English primetime television channel at the time. However, they later caught on, and The Simpsons was not shown on TV for about 10 years. For those confused by the comment about having a black girlfriend being strange, this stems from the perception that a privileged white boy witnessed the rape and murder of a 7-year-old black girl and went on to attend a prestigious university. Black student groups were especially vocal in calling for him to be expelled, viewing it as racial injustice. Many prominent figures from the African American community spoke out against him, painting him as an adversary to their cause. Story 4. Define loser in high school. The overweight, socially awkward boy. He is now wealthy, married, with 4 children, and has a successful career. The student with the lowest grades. He is frequently in and out of prison. The boy who was using hard drugs in high school, he died of an overdose. The eccentric boy who was caught watching inappropriate content and engaging in inappropriate behavior during computer class? He is now a lawyer. Story 5. I am now an aeronautical engineer. We recently talked online about where we both are in life. My friend mentioned that time flies, and I am genuinely happy for him. Story 6. There was a child in our class who would cry every time he was asked to read aloud or say something in front of the class. It was always painful to watch, and some kids would make fun of him. He also frequently ate his own boogers when he thought no one was watching. He moved away after 6th grade in 1978, and I never saw him again. I looked him up recently on LinkedIn, and it turns out he earned a Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science from Stanford University and made a fortune on patents he obtained with Silicon Graphics. He didn't reply to my LinkedIn invitation. Story 7. My guess is he is probably in prison on charges related to inappropriate conduct with minors. More than once during our senior year, he tried to date 6th graders. He was warned numerous times to stop and was eventually expelled just weeks before graduation. Story 8. She is a published author of multiple books and excelling in the romance genre. She used to let me read her work during a boring class we were required to take, sharing a two-person table, and that was the only thing that kept me engaged. She was truly talented. I would have never labeled her as a loser. She was simply a very earnest girl in a larger body whose social skills had not yet fully developed. However, she was smart, sweet, and gentle. I often invited her to sit with my friends at lunch, but she never joined us. Instead, she ate alone every day, scribbling in notebooks. I am really glad she found her path to happiness and success. Romance books are not my preference, but I pre-order every one of her books to show my support. Story 9. The school mascot is in charge of a Navy submarine in the Atlantic. When people were concerned about the Russian submarine, all I could think about was that the start of World War III might be due to Tony, who wore the banana suit during Spirit Week. The trench coat kid, who was actually very nice, now has a business 3D printing adult toys. And me? I'm in manufacturing in Cleveland. Story 10. I think he went into the army. My mom saw his mother at the grocery store a few years ago, and they talked for a little while. Story 11. I went to kindergarten with this kid and graduated with him. I sat next to him in homeroom every day for 4 years of high school. He was reasonably nice, I guess, but I barely interacted with him. He had his own group of friends, but was otherwise generally not very popular. They gave off a strong incel vibe. I guess after graduation he got into drugs, lost a significant amount of weight, and ended up murdering a pregnant girl and her boyfriend behind a restaurant because she wouldn't date him or have sex with him. He also had sexual relations with her corpse. Now he's serving a sentence of 130 years in prison. Story 12. He filmed himself killing someone with an ice pick and mailed the body parts to Canadian politicians. However, this was in Canada, so he will be eligible for parole in 15 years. Story 13. In federal prison for blowing up blue postal boxes with pipe bombs. He could have blown up trash cans, and since no one got hurt, it would have been a misdemeanor. However, tampering with the mail is a federal offense, and each individual letter destroyed is a separate count. He got caught by leaving an unfinished pipe bomb in the back of his friend's father's car. This friend's father was the fire marshal and had been consulting on the case. Story 14. It's me. I am a teacher now, and life is pretty great. I am staying in my lane. I took the boys to Disney yesterday. Summer break for the win. Story 15. He is a struggling DJ living with his retired parents in Florida. He also has a criminal record for sexual assault. Story 16. Nobody knows. We tried contacting him for a reunion, but it was impossible to find him. I really don't want to call him a loser, though. He was probably suffering from undiagnosed or poorly treated attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or anxiety at the time. This was 20 years ago when seeing a psychiatrist was seen as shameful and something to be hidden. He was friendly and never had a problem with anyone. He just wasn't capable of navigating a poorly structured school setting. It's really sad. Some people are naturally good at school and some just aren't, even though there is fundamentally nothing wrong with them as human beings. The system is set up so that success in school determines a large part of your future, and that's pretty unfair, honestly. Story 17. After taking a 20-year detour involving substance use, psychiatric wards, rehabilitation, and dysfunctional relationships, I now have my dream job in the medical field. High school can significantly affect someone. It took me years to develop a positive self-image and become confident after feeling like the loser. Story 18, Generation X here. It seems like most people I knew from high school underwent a complete turnaround as they got older. The individuals who were considered losers ended up with good jobs, purchased homes, and started families. Conversely, the popular kids often became out of shape, dropped out of college, went through divorces, and lacked ambitions. Story 19. I felt like a loser in high school. I wore stinky clothes and plastic grocery bags on my feet under my shoes when it rained, and sometimes went to school barefoot. I was often hungry and slept in a church youth room for which I had a key, sneaking in after hours. While some people were cruel to me, I was quite naive about it, so it didn't affect me much, and I don't hold any hard feelings. There were really nice people too. I was in a band that lasted about 9 or 10 years before it failed. My marriage also ended after about 5 or 6 years. I pursued a dream of opening my own music lessons and recording studio, but that failed too after about 8 years. These were spectacular failures and very humbling, leaving me back to square one, destitute, and resorting to stealing food from the grocery store. These days, I've been doing okay. I've worked with special needs children for the last 10 years. I earned my Braille certificate, obtained a bachelor's degree in elementary education, and am currently working on my master's in educational technology. I'm literally doing what most people do in their 20s, just 20 years late. Better late than never, I guess. Story 20. I am currently on Reddit. It's just me. Everyone else from my class has gone on to have professional careers and families. Meanwhile, I have been diagnosed with cancer, suffered a stroke, and had my disability payments wrongfully stopped. I am currently going through an appeal process. So all my old school friends are living in nice houses with their families, filled with hope for the future, while I am starving, in danger of losing my home, sick, and enduring side effects from my medication, all alone and with nothing to look forward to. I was considered a loser in school because I liked rock music while the other kids preferred rhythm and blues and boyzone. Now I feel like a loser in real life, as many people have taken pleasure in reminding me. I don't even join my old school social media page because I am too embarrassed to let them see how my life has turned out. Story 21. It's impossible for me to know. My school was too big. There wasn't really a loser in a class of 1,000 students. However, I did know someone who was bullied in middle school. When the teacher left the room unattended, his bully started messing with him and then punched him in the head. Every girl in the class began to confront the bully, using a mean girl-style approach until he sulked, and we never saw him bully that kid again. Before that incident, we had just let it happen, and I remember hating to see it, but something about the hit caused the class to stop being silent. I literally watched the bully shrink down. He seemed to think that bullying the kid made him popular. Story 22. He used drugs, was sent to juvenile detention in high school, robbed a liquor store at gunpoint at 19, went to prison for several years, and now posts images of himself with a tough persona on social media, showcasing numerous facial tattoos. Ironically, his last name is Crook. I don't know how he's doing, but I'm not surprised by what I have seen so far. Story 23. It's me. I feel like a loser. I have been married for 26 years, have 2 wonderful children, and own a house. God willing, in 5 years, I will be collecting a pension. If I could go back to my younger self, I would tell her that school isn't real life and that everything will be okay. Story 24. I learned it quite recently, and I couldn't repress some feeling of joy. He was a loser, but a violent loser. He couldn't stand people who took studies seriously and succeeded. He quit school quite early but was still roaming around the campus. He had a bike and was terrorizing all kids going home, including me, by a cruel technique. He would force us to climb on his bike so he could take us home, but it was like a suicidal journey. He would cross roads at full speed without looking for any cars. How anyone hasn't been killed is beyond me. This guy gave me nightmares. Then one day he disappeared. I grew up, had modest success in my education, and landed a good job. One day, while I was waiting for the bus, he came up to me. He recognized me. I didn't at first, but when he talked to me, I recognized him. I wasn't scared, we were already adults at this time. He looked poor and dirty. He genuinely thought we were friends when we were young. He told me that life was hard for him, that he was struggling. As the discussion went on, I learned that he spent his life in bars, drinking and doing nothing. He asked me for help, he needed money. To get rid of him, I gave him the equivalent of $1, just enough for a coffee. He left disappointed but somehow happy to have this bit of money. He was the kind of guy who was pure scum. There was nothing good about him. I knew that if I felt less confident, he would bully me or rob me of my money. He sensed I wasn't scared. He died in his 40s, and I am sure no one on this earth felt an ounce of sadness. Story 25. Approximately 35 to 40% of the people I attended high school with have died from various factors, including the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the opioid epidemic, the Great Recession, and the fentanyl crisis. I am uncertain who the losers were, but surely some of them are included in that statistic. Story 26. I am working at the post office and currently taking a 5-minute break before hurrying to finish my route, so I can start my vacation when I am done. Story 27. If by loser, you mean the malnourished, abused, and neglected kid wearing dirty, torn clothes, that was me. I ran away from home and went to my grandparents. I was an outsider at my new school but made friends and graduated with a 3.6 grade point average, then joined the military. Now I am a 61-year-old combat veteran and partially disabled. But life is great now. I have a wonderful, loving girlfriend and 5 cats who genuinely adore us. Life balances out. Story 28. I am a compliance and legal operations manager for a unique startup in New York City. The individuals who bullied me are still in our small town. Story 29. It's me, a poor kid, the cootie kid. I have a beautiful wife and kids, and a successful business. I have never looked back. Story 30. I failed school, have a dead-end job, and I am going to be homeless in a few months when my roommates move out of state. All I can say is some of the successful peers I attended high school with ended up with serious drug addictions, so I guess I am better off than them. Story 31. We had a few individuals in one friend group, and here's what I know. One of them attended mortician school to work in the funeral home industry. A few of them worked together at the local game store and in other retail jobs. One of them had a private video leaked shortly after high school, became pregnant, and now has a family, enjoying her life with her husband and children. Story 32. I am truly proud of him, and I always knew he had great potential. The typical high school outcast, wearing a trench coat he literally got from a dumpster, was bullied daily. Today, he is a professional special effects artist for costumes and sets. Story 33. I read today that a police officer may have mishandled a murder conviction after inviting a witness from the case to his house to try to coerce her into sexual acts. As a result, the murderer who killed his pregnant girlfriend may go free due to the poor quality of the investigation. Story 34. He joined the Air Force at the same time I joined the Navy. 33 years later, he retired as a 2-star general. Story 35. I am still firmly an underachiever who is now a courier for a cannabis company and has gained 50 to 60 pounds since joining the company in April. I am 28 years old with absolutely no path to follow or forge. I am a one-trick pony. I can gain significant weight and lose it fairly quickly. I am decent at endurance sports such as running and cycling, but my brain chemicals eventually work against me, and I have to start the cycle all over again. I live in my mother's basement. I am a loner, which is typical, but sometimes the tiny voice in the back of my mind tells me that I am absolutely better and meant for more, yet I can never seem to figure it out. I am in a low mental state, and that is where I am at. Things were so much different just 90 days ago. Story 36. I struggled in school, had only a few friends, and received poor grades. I spent most of my time playing games and felt socially awkward. That version of me is gone now. I moved to a new country where no one knew me, changed my personality, enrolled in university as a mature student, started going to the gym, took better care of my appearance, made many friends, and found a wonderful girlfriend. Even if I were to run into someone from my past, I doubt they would recognize me. Story 37. This kid in my high school was the smallest and skinniest. He hung out with us nerds before being a nerd was cool, but otherwise kept to himself. He was very quiet, often hid in giant hoodies, and generally tried to disappear. After high school, he joined the army. He got fit, became a drill sergeant, and later an attack helicopter pilot. He married a gorgeous waitress from a well-known restaurant, who recently earned her medical degree. I wish I could have been a loser like that kid. Story 38. He shot a ride-sharing driver in the back of the head a few years ago, throwing away his lucrative career as a taxi driver. Story 39. He is in the same place he was when we graduated, living with his parents and having his mom take care of nearly everything. He is the younger of two kids, and when his older sibling died, his mom never really dealt with the loss in a healthy way and became excessively overprotective of her baby. I remember at age 12, he briefly joined my soccer club and trained with us for a few weeks. Just when it looked like he might be coming out of his shell a bit, he suffered a minor injury, and his mom immediately pulled him from the team because she didn't want him playing such a violent and dangerous sport. This was a soccer team. Now he is in his mid-30s, working a dead-end job but fundamentally incapable of functioning as an adult. He cannot cook because his mom prepares all his meals. He doesn't know how to do laundry or clean anything because his mom handles that as well. If he needs an appointment for the dentist or a barber, his mom books it for him. He even still lives in the same bedroom he grew up in as a child. Story 40. He is a multimillionaire guitar manufacturer in California. He is very interested in LSD and has a stunning wife. He no longer looks like a nerd. I am genuinely happy for him. Story 41. Probably a Reddit moderator posting on their burner account. I am super successful, and I have a family of 3. I couldn't be happier. Story 42. It's me. Hi. I'm the loser. It's me. I'm doing well. I am married to a woman out of my league, have 3 wonderful children, a nice house, a great job, and a few nice vehicles. In school, I received poor grades, was incredibly socially awkward, and was generally not well regarded. After some years, some trauma, and an Asperger's diagnosis, I figured out how to leverage all of that for personal gain and had some luck. I don't blame anyone though. I was strange and still am, and the definition of strange has evolved and become more socially acceptable. Story 43. I went to school with a kid who lived with his single father. He was very poor, had greasy hair, and was socially awkward. Most people would have classified him as a loser. He is now a multimillionaire in the Bitcoin technology industry. I am so happy for him, and it makes me smile to know he is doing so well. Story 44. He attended a reputable university, earned 2 degrees, and currently lives with his parents. He is struggling financially and finds it difficult to muster the energy to get out of bed each day. He has no friends and a diminishing support system, and his mental health is precarious. Dear reader, he is me. Story 45. Everyone is going to claim that they were the loser, but I actually was. By the time junior year rolled around, I had no friends. I spent my lunch breaks walking around aimlessly or eating my lunch in a bathroom stall. I blended into the background on purpose unless someone decided I was an easy target to publicly mock or to make jokes about school shootings. My clothes all had holes in them because we were poor and lived in a trailer. I had severe acne as well, and nothing over-the-counter worked. If I accidentally made eye contact with a girl, I would get laughed at and face that look. I had terrible grades and failed the 10th grade, so the other kids made fun of me for being stupid on top of my looks. My teachers openly disliked me, especially the female ones. From what I can gather, pretty much everyone in my life back then just expected me to take my own life. I am now a mechanical engineer making far more than the average household income for the area I live in. I own multiple sports cars and motorcycles. I have traveled overseas for recreation and am in excellent physical condition. I have undergone cosmetic surgeries and turned down girls who approach me. Things are far from ideal, but I feel like I've clawed my way up from a precarious situation. The truth is, I still don't forgive anyone from back then. Story 46. He was me. I was the outcast in high school with few friends, being overweight and constantly bullied. 8 years after graduation, I now live in a big city, have a 3-bedroom apartment in the heart of it, overlooking the entire city. I have a good job with excellent benefits and a supportive group of friends. I have plenty of time for my hobbies and passions. I lost a significant amount of weight and got in shape by toning my body and gaining muscle. Now, I receive constant compliments on how great I look, and I have an active enough sex life that I feel content. So he's doing really well. Story 47. Working as a business consultant. He drives around in a Rolls-Royce and owns multiple million-dollar houses. He only wears luxury brands and flies business class. I know this because we were friends growing up, and our parents live close to each other. Story 48. Sitting in her living room, with the love of her life nearby, she enjoys her retirement, contemplates her life after stepping down from her elected office later this year, and realizes she doesn't feel any different than she did before becoming a millionaire. Oh, and she is also answering questions from Reddit. Story 49. I was the loser. I had a terrible home life full of various abuses that no one knew about. Years later, I went through extensive therapy to resolve my traumas, reported my abuser to the police, and now I am a father to a very funny little girl. I have been with my wonderful partner for years. I am on my 3rd home and I do well at work. I am pursuing my dream of being a professional writer, working in film, working in gaming, or being a software engineer. Life is really good now. I feel like I am the grown-up version of my younger self, instead of being defined by past traumas. My younger self would be thrilled to know that I have a nice fiancé and enjoy a lot of Star Wars and Marvel movies and television shows. I turned my life around. Story 50. I joined the military, got my life together, earned a degree, completed pilot training, and now work at a legacy airline. Not bad for someone who barely graduated high school. Story 51. The person most would consider a loser is probably me. I was a loner, listened to metal music, and played video games. You get the picture. Now, I am a doctor, have an amazing wife, and just bought our new apartment. Life is going pretty well, actually. The person I considered a loser was the guy who bullied me. He was very self-conscious, which he masked by putting others down. Nowadays, he has a rather nondescript position in his father's company after being let go with a friend of his father's. The only thing I would change is to go back and tell my younger self that your social status in school doesn't matter. Story 52. A life sentence for sexually assaulting his stepchild while knowingly being HIV positive. He gave me the creeps in middle school. I didn't have a justification for it. He just had a vibe that was off. A girl I grew up with, who I felt the same way about but was forced to play with because of our parents, dated him in high school. I just couldn't stand being around either of them. My mom said I had to be nice, but I wasn't, and I regret nothing. Story 53. Right now, he is commenting on this post. I was definitely the underdog in my last 2 years of elementary school and throughout middle school. I work in a kindergarten. Story 54. Retired at 30 with a 3rd child on the way, and wealthier than anyone I have ever met. She remains a good friend. We were both considered outsiders. She created a filtration system and sold the rights to use it for a substantial sum. Story 55. Not the loser, but the guy who peaked in high school. His parents bought him cars and new sneakers every other month, and he dated many girls. He never grew up or changed. He is a wealthy narcissist who treats everyone poorly. He has a trophy wife who would leave him in an instant if he lost his money. He owns a large house that nobody visits because everyone has finally grown tired of his behavior. He is alone and I pity him. Story 56. I occasionally search for the individuals from my school years who acted poorly, but none of them ever appear. I like to think that this means they have remained unproductive and insignificant. I'll accept that. Story 57. I am retired from the military, earning $500,000 a year, and I am married with 4 children. I felt like a loser because I grew up in a broken family, experienced homelessness, and had torn clothes. I worked full-time from age 14 to 18, barely graduated high school, and was involved in the school band in an attempt to make friends, which ultimately did not succeed. Story 58. She was influenced by a group after getting sober from the streets of Chicago. She is unable to say a sentence without mentioning her mentor, meditates for hours, and has shaved her head. Story 59. I'm doing just fine. I left school, had my name legally changed, moved to a new city 100 miles away, and started over. Once I was no longer burdened by my past reputation from high school, dating became much easier. I made a lot of friends quickly and started doing much better in school. And now I'm doing great. Story 60. I am currently unemployed. My income comes from disability benefits, and I live with my older brother, his partner, and their baby. I am not able to live on my own due to my disability. Story 61. I dropped out of high school in the 9th grade and later returned to repeat the year. Unfortunately, I vandalized the school and was expelled from the district, resulting in community service and youth probation. Everyone in the school disliked me, and I was known as the bad kid because I damaged the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system for 6 months. There was no air conditioning from January until at least April, resulting in $80,000 in damage. For my community service, I worked on various information technology projects for a community youth organization in a small town. This experience allowed me to advance my career through different companies, eventually securing a job in information technology at another school district. I have come full circle. Story 62. I can think of 2 individuals who took their own lives. One was a troubled young man who dropped out of school and ended his life shortly after. The other was a convicted felon struggling with opioid addiction in his 50s when he ended his own life. I feel sorry for his family, but he was someone I could have imagined causing harm to others. I'm relieved he did not involve anyone else in his tragedy. Story 63. According to an online encyclopedia, he ended up in Japan with his wife and 2 children. He possibly murdered his parents and sister, who was my friend, but was never tried. Story 64. The young man tragically took his own life a few months after graduating. It was revealed that he had been a victim of his father's abuse and that of his father's friends since he was 7 years old. After graduating, he confronted his father, resulting in him being thrown out of the house. He ultimately ended his life on the family picnic table in the front yard. This young man displayed bullying behavior, which we now understand was a manifestation of his unresolved trauma. Story 65. It was really a group of us. We got nicknamed because of the most foolish member of the group, who was my best friend at the time. Last I saw, he is still living with his mom on her couch, just playing video games and showering maybe once a month. Not an exaggeration. I'm not sure about the person who vanished mid-high school. One moved to Alabama, and I will leave it there for her. As for the last 2, my current best friend is happily in a healthy relationship with his boyfriend, and they both work in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. They are adorable together, and my friend has come a long way from being an introverted person to the loudest one in the room. I love him so much. As for me, I am now the marketing sales supervisor at a nice pottery shop, engaged to the love of my life whom I met all the way back in middle school. I am the happiest I have ever been and at the healthiest weight I have ever been. I weighed between 230 and 240 pounds in high school, and now I weigh 145 pounds. Much love to you all. On a side note, I would like to mention that my best friend from high school stopped being my friend when I found out he had been talking about killing me in my sleep to my ex. My family had given him a place to stay when his mom temporarily kicked him out. He was begging his mom to let him come back when he was rightfully kicked out of my family's house. Story 66. I am homeless, jobless, and in debt. However, at least I have avoided teen pregnancy, unlike many of my classmates. Story 67. Drove into a brick wall while driving under the influence the summer after graduation. Several people tried to stop him from leaving the party, but I guess no one made enough of an effort. Story 68. Last time I saw him, he was still doing the same thing, getting stoned, surfing, and living across the street from the beach. The only distinct change is that he's now living upstairs in his deceased parents' home and living off the millions they left him. Nothing has changed. He's still cruising on his rusted beach cruiser from place to place, wearing nicer shorts and remaining as chill and humble as always. Story 69. I see there are a few details. He is serving a life sentence for murdering a 10-year-old while the child was asleep when he was 15. He was tried as an adult and received a life sentence. Just before his scheduled release, he overpowered a guard and escaped during a day pass, ultimately returning to prison with no chance of parole. Story 70. There were many incidents. One individual rolled his truck while standing through the skylight and steering with his foot, grinding everything against his hips into paste between the truck's roof and the pavement. I passed about 100 feet of the paste on my way to work and found out it was him when I arrived. Another person ran a stop sign on a motorcycle and was killed 100 feet away. Another was sentenced to life in federal prison for running an online child pornography ring. One graduated from law school, moved to the state capital, and earns a substantial income. Still considered a loser, though. Story 71. I was the overweight girl in high school. I now look better at 44 than 95% of the women I attended school with. I guess it's vindication in a way. I wasn't really a loser, but I was certainly invisible and insignificant. Story 72. We had a student in my school who had a difficult background. His mother consumed alcohol excessively and used illegal drugs during her pregnancy, leading to his neglect. From first grade onward, he frequently found himself in trouble and was often involved with the juvenile justice system. He was also perceived as being slow, with a likely IQ comparable to room temperature. He eventually ended up in state prison for murder, where he rose to a leadership position within one of the Aryan Brotherhood factions. Later, he was transferred to the federal prison system and died in a federal prison hospital after being sexually assaulted. Story 73. I went to school with a guy who seemed to be dressing like the character from the Pretty Fly for a White Guy music video. This was at a high school in Arkansas in 2002. He is still in town and works at Walmart, and he seems happy. Story 74. There was a group of bullies. I looked them up 2 years ago, and every one of them has passed away. I am in my mid-50s. Story 75. I saw that person earlier today. He was disheveled. Looked like he just woke up, clearly hungover, and seemed to be living in my mirror like some sort of bum. Story 76. He told everyone he would be a tech genius and be everyone's boss. But the last I heard, he was working 15 hours a week at GameStop. We are both 31. Story 77. I am a retired combat veteran, pursuing my master's degree, and working in a successful job. Those winners back home who were attracting the popular girls because they played football have often gained significant weight, faced erectile dysfunction by the age of 35, discovered that none of their children are biologically theirs or are actually full siblings, gone through multiple divorces, found religion, and settled down with someone who was once considered unattractive but is now beautiful, even after having been involved with many of his friends during school and the majority of problematic boys. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.